In these mountains, trails don't just wander, they vanish. Here, the wild keeps its own counsel, and one misstep can rewrite a life. Along America's eastern spine lies a path of ancient stone and whispering woods, more than a route through mountains, a promise and a test. It is a living, breathing entity, a ribbon of wilderness woven into the fabric of the nation. This is the Appalachian Trail. Its story is not written in ink, but etched into the very landscape it traverses. A landscape that has witnessed the rise and fall of mountains, the flow of ancient rivers, and the endless cycle of seasons. The mountains themselves, worn down by 500 million years of wind and rain, are among the oldest on Earth. They hold a quiet wisdom, a silent history that draws people in, inviting them to connect with something primal and enduring. Stretching nearly 2,200 miles, it winds its way through the ancient mountains of America's eastern spine. This legendary footpath crosses 14 states, a monumental journey that begins in the verdant rolling hills of Georgia and culminates in the raw, untamed wilderness of Maine. It traverses the Great Smoky Mountains, follows the Blue Ridge, and challenges climbers with the rocky spine of Pennsylvania and the formidable peaks of New Hampshire's White Mountains. Each section offers its own unique character, its own distinct beauty, and its own set of challenges. From the gentle, welcoming slopes of Springer Mountain in Georgia to the final, grueling ascent of Mount Katahdin in Maine, it calls to the adventurous soul. It is a siren song of freedom and self-discovery. It promises solitude, profound beauty, and a deep, almost spiritual connection to the natural world. To walk the trail is to strip away the non-essential, to find a rhythm dictated not by clocks and calendars, but by the rising and setting of the sun. It's a chance to hear one's own thoughts, to feel the earth beneath your feet, and to witness vistas that have remained unchanged for millennia. Each year, thousands of hikers answer this call. Some are through hikers, attempting the entire length in a single epic journey that can take 5 to 7 months. Others are section hikers, tackling the trail piece by piece over years, and many more are day hikers, seeking a brief escape. They come from all walks of life, driven by a shared desire to test their physical and mental limits, to escape the relentless noise of modern life, and to find something real and tangible in a world that can often feel synthetic. They walk in the footsteps of those who came before, joining a long lineage of dreamers and wanderers who saw the trail not just as a recreational path, but as a vision for preservation and a sanctuary for the human spirit. But this romantic beauty, this promise of renewal, masks a formidable and unforgiving power. The Appalachian Trail is not a park. It is not a manicured garden path. It is a wilderness, a true untamed wilderness that operates on its own terms, indifferent to human plans and vulnerabilities. Here, the terrain can be treacherous, with slick routes, loose rocks, and steep ascents that can exhaust even the most seasoned athlete. The weather is notoriously unpredictable. A sunny morning can turn into a life-threatening electrical storm, or a disorienting, bone-chilling fog in a matter of minutes. And the isolation can be absolute. Miles from the nearest road with no cell service, a hiker is utterly on their own. Out here, a simple wrong turn can lead to catastrophic disorientation. The very forests that offer solace and peace can quickly become a bewildering maze of indistinguishable trees, swallowing paths, landmarks, and all sense of direction without a trace. The trail's white blazes, the hiker's lifeline, can be missed in a moment of distraction. Once off the path, every direction looks the same. Panic can set in, compounding the error, turning a minor mistake into a desperate crisis. Most who lose their way are found. They emerge from the woods tired, humbled, but safe. But sometimes the wilderness claims a hiker. Sometimes the path disappears, and a story of adventure transforms into a desperate struggle for survival. In the dense, remote woods of western Maine, during the summer of 2013, the trail became the setting for just such a mystery. It was a case that would baffle experienced searchers, generate national attention, and haunt the hiking community for years to come. It is the story of Geraldine Lage, an experienced and well-prepared hiker who just miles from a resupply point, stepped off the path for a moment and was never seen alive again. Her disappearance triggered one of the largest search and rescue operations in Maine's history. Yet for 2 years, the forest held its secret, leaving behind only questions and a silent, heartbreaking testament to her courage against impossible odds. This is the story of what happens when the trail vanishes. Subscribe for more true exploration tragedies. Before the headlines and search grids, there was a woman, Geraldine Jerry Largay, 66, from Brentwood, Tennessee. Not a daredevil, but a quiet force, methodical, kind, resilient. Friends leaned on her. She carried others' burdens without noise. To understand the mystery that followed, you first have to meet Jerry, the steady heart behind the miles. Her life was built upon a deep-seated desire to care for others. She was the person friends and family turned to for a steady hand and a listening ear, someone who found purpose in easing the burdens of those around her. This innate compassion wasn't just a personality trait. It was the very foundation of her professional life. For many years, she served her country with distinction as a nurse in the U.S. Air Force. It was a role that demanded a unique blend of technical precision, profound empathy, and an unwavering composure under the most intense pressure. In the structured, high-stakes world of military medicine, there is no room for panic, no tolerance for error. Every action is deliberate, every decision critical. This profession shaped her, honing her ability to remain calm in crises and to meticulously plan and prepare for any eventuality. She learned to assess a situation, identify potential risks, and execute a plan with methodical calm. These were not just job skills, they were life skills, ingrained into the very fabric of her character. So when she retired, the idea of hiking the entire Appalachian Trail was not a sudden, impulsive whim. She began in April 2013, aiming to reach Baxter State Park in Maine. It was a carefully considered goal, another chapter in a life lived with intention and quiet determination. For Jerry, this wasn't about conquering a mountain. It was about embracing a challenge with the same diligence and foresight she had applied to everything else in her life. She spent months in preparation, undertaking shorter, demanding hikes to condition her body and test her equipment. She researched every section of the trail, understanding the unique challenges each state would present. Out here on the Appalachian Trail, she adopted a trail name that perfectly captured her essence: Inchworm. Like the small, persistent creature she was named after, she moved forward with a consistent and measured rhythm. Her pace was not fast, but it was relentless. She made her progress inch by inch, mile by mile, day after day. There was no complaint or fanfare, only the quiet satisfaction of steady, forward movement. She wasn't racing against a clock or competing with other hikers. She was simply present in her journey, absorbing the world around her one deliberate step at a time. And her method was undeniably effective. By the time the humid days of July 2013 arrived, Jerry Largay had successfully walked approximately 1,000 miles of the Appalachian Trail. She had begun her journey in the budding forests of Georgia, navigated the misty, rain-soaked peaks of the Great Smoky Mountains, and traversed the long, rolling hills of Virginia. Each section presented its own test of will and endurance. Through it all, she had demonstrated the skills and the fortitude to handle what the wilderness threw at her. She had faced down torrential rain, navigated treacherous footing, and managed the daily physical toll of long-distance hiking. Her nursing background gave her an intimate understanding of her own body's limits and needs, allowing her to manage fatigue and prevent injury with a practiced eye. But she wasn't entirely alone in this monumental undertaking. Her husband, George, was her steadfast support system, her one-man logistics team. Their system was a well-oiled machine, a testament to their partnership. George would drive their vehicle along the roads that intersected the trail, meeting her at pre-arranged crossings every few days. He would resupply her with food and fresh gear, and offer a welcome dose of civilization and love before she ventured back into the wild. This routine was their lifeline, a crucial component of her meticulously crafted plan. Now, she was entering the final and arguably most difficult leg of her journey. The trail in western Maine is a different beast entirely. It is notoriously rugged, unforgivingly remote, and far less traveled than the southern sections. The terrain is a chaotic jumble of granite roots and steep, punishing climbs. The forest is dense, swallowing light and sound. As Jerry Largay stepped into this formidable landscape, with her next meeting with George planned and her goal almost in sight, there was no reason for her or anyone else to believe that anything would change. The plan was working. The inchworm was moving forward. The morning of July 22, 2013, dawned like many others in the Maine woods. Cool air pooling in the hollows, bead-like mist hanging low, light filtering weakly through spruce and fir. Under a dense triple canopy, visibility shrank to narrow corridors between trunks. Sound was muffled. The day felt hushed, the forest indifferent and immense. At Poplar Ridge Shelter, routine anchored the morning. Water, a quick breakfast, a glance at the map and notes, a check of the forecast scribbled from the last stop. She double-checked a white blaze, the simple mark that linked one moment to the next across miles of wilderness. She was staying at the Poplar Ridge Shelter, preparing to set out alone. Gear checked, laces tied, layers adjusted against damp air, habits built over 1,000 miles. She said her goodbyes to the other hiker and set off on the well-marked path. A steady rhythm. Step, breathe, glance up, white blaze, repeat. The trail ran true along the ridge. At some point during her morning hike, Jerry needed to relieve herself. Stepping off the trail for a few moments of privacy is a routine part of trail life. She moved a short distance from the treadway, onto faint herd paths and game trails where the ground pitched gently and shallow drainages suggested a direction that wasn't the trail at all. In a dense, uniform forest, every direction can start to look the same. Turn once, look back, and the precise line of her footsteps, the subtle human order of the trail, dissolved into needles, leaves, and identical trees. When she turned to go back, the clear line of the trail was no longer visible. A moment of disorientation had set in. Training took over. She tried to backtrack in careful arcs, marking sticks and small stone stacks at each pause, method in the midst of rising unease. 3 blasts on a whistle, then stillness. She listened, 1 minute, then another, only the soft drip of last night's dew from the canopy. The trail had vanished. She was now officially lost. She checked her compass, chose a bearing she believed would intersect the ridge, and began to move with deliberate care. Slow, systematic, mindful of conserving energy. Jerry Largay did what any of us would do in a moment of crisis. She reached for her cell phone. No service. She toggled airplane mode, waited, tried again. Nothing. At 11:01 a.m. on July 22nd, she typed out a desperate plea to her husband. In some trouble, got off trail, now lost. Can you call AMC? She climbed toward a knoll for a better signal. Bars flickered, then died. The message queued, waiting for a connection that never came. The message went nowhere. Her next logical step was to try and gain elevation. From above, the canopy was a woven lid, spruce and fir crowns interlocked, hiding anything beneath from sight. The phone's digital record would later show multiple failed attempts to reach him. She steadied her breathing. Training, not panic. Conserve and decide. She chose deliberate action over drift. In Maine's deep woods, trails can vanish in a single step. What had been obvious a moment before becomes a cipher of bark and shadow. In that instant, the forest rewrote the day. Realizing that she could not wander aimlessly, Jerry made a crucial survival decision. She established a base camp. Her location, however, was tragically flawed, situated beneath a dense triple canopy forest that made her campsite virtually invisible from the air. She turned to a more ancient method of signaling for help: fire. Tragically, her efforts were defeated. The smoke was trapped and diffused by the thick layers of leaves and branches overhead. She chose a small rise near a faint seep, clear of blowdowns, high enough to shed water, low enough to stay sheltered, minimizing the risk of getting more disoriented. She pitched the tent low, tightened the rainfly, added insulation with what she had, and organized a base, dry bag here, map and journal there, everything in its place. She rationed deliberately, small measured portions, marking days and conserving stove fuel for when it mattered most. Water came carefully, gathered at a seep or trickle, then filtered or treated before she drank. Slow, methodical, safe. She conserved batteries, brief timed phone checks from higher spots, then off again, saving power for the chance of a signal. When smoke failed beneath the canopy, she created ground signals, bright clothing and a reflective blanket laid into a clear SOS, hoping a break in leaves might reveal it. Weather turned against her. Fog, drizzle and wet duff muted sound and smothered smoke, day after day. Staying put was the safest choice. In thick uniform woods, movement without a known bearing only deepens the maze. She waited for rescue. Jerry Largay survived alone in the wilderness for at least 26 days. She eventually ran out of the food she had packed, forced to confront the brutal reality of starvation. Yet even in this state, she continued to write. Her journal became her only companion. The final visible entry in her journal is dated August 18, 2013, though some uncertainty about that date remains. By this point, she had been lost for 26 days. When she did not arrive at the Route 27 crossing, the clock began to matter. George waited, then rechecked the time and the plan, scanning the trailhead and parking area for any sign of her. When Geraldine Largay failed to appear at the Route 27 road crossing, her husband George's patient wait turned to outright alarm. He contacted the authorities. The Maine Warden Service launched one of the largest search operations in state history. The hunt for inchworm had officially begun. The initial hasty search swept obvious routes and nearby junctions. Within hours, the effort expanded to an organized search under an incident command system. Maps were spread across tables, grids drawn and redrawn, assignments briefed by section, trail, drainages, ridge lines and likely points of misdirection. Agencies and volunteers converged, Maine Warden Service, local search and rescue teams, wardens and K9 units, and members of the Appalachian Trail community. Ground teams scoured the trail and fanned out into the dense undergrowth. Line searches moved inch by inch, flagging tape fluttering on saplings, probe poles testing brush and hollows, eyes trained for clues, a thread, a boot print, a broken twig. Clue awareness briefings emphasized probability of detection. What a person, a shelter, or a camp might look like from 5, 10, or 100 yards through leaves and shadow. The effort extended to the skies, but the dense canopy blocked all sight of the ground. From above, the forest was an unbroken roof of green. Even with pilots straining for detail, leaves turned the ground into a shifting camouflage. Weather added to the challenge. Low clouds, gusting winds, and passing rain squalls that grounded aircraft and blurred what little could be seen. K9 teams were brought in, but the wind and rain quickly dispersed any faint scent trails. Terrain funneled air like a maze. Cold drains, stream corridors, and boulder fields fragmented odor. Water crossings diluted and carried scent away. Handlers worked methodically, resetting search lanes after storms, documenting wind shifts, and returning to promising sign when conditions improved. Official reports would later reveal a heartbreaking truth. On multiple occasions, searchers passed within a mere 100 yards of her tent. In that forest, 100 yards can be a wall. A low tent under triple canopy vanishes beneath leaves and light, present yet invisible. Volunteers checked shelters and logbooks, posted flyers in trail towns, and spoke with hikers moving north and south along the corridor. George coordinated with wardens and waited at crossings, a fixed point in a moving operation, ready with supplies, hope, and any detail that might help. Daily briefings tracked areas covered, clues evaluated, and resources reassigned, an exhausting calculus of terrain, time, and likelihood. Along the way, safety bulletins reminded hikers to sign registers, travel in pairs when possible, and keep loved ones informed. Practical steps, without blame. The official search was eventually suspended after weeks of exhaustive and fruitless effort. It was a decision made with heavy hearts, after every reasonable tactic had been tried and tried again across terrain that hid more than it revealed. The woods grew quiet once more, holding their secret a little longer. For 2 long years, the fate of Geraldine Largay remained a painful, gnawing mystery for her family and the hiking community. The largest search in Maine's history had yielded nothing, and hope had begun to fade into a quiet, persistent ache of not knowing. The forest had swallowed her whole, leaving behind only questions. Then, on October 14, 2015, in Reddington Township, Maine, the silence was broken. The truth was found not by a dedicated search party combing the woods, but by a contract surveyor mapping US Navy-owned land used for its survival, evasion, resistance, and escape school, a place where the wilderness itself is the ultimate instructor. Venturing just a short distance off his survey line to find a clearer spot, he stumbled upon something that didn't belong. There, almost completely swallowed by 2 years of leaf litter and forest decay, was the unmistakable outline of a collapsed tent. It was a scene frozen in time, a silent testament to a long and lonely vigil. The site sat on Navy land about 3,000 to 3,500 feet from the Appalachian Trail, in a thick, unforgiving section of woods that had defeated the original search efforts. The surveyor immediately contacted the main warden service. After 788 days of uncertainty, the search for Jerry Largay was finally over. Inside the tent, investigators found Jerry's remains, along with her backpack, sleeping bag, and personal items, including her journal, a map, first aid kit, and rosary beads. The scene was one of order, not panic. It spoke of a person who had faced their final days with methodical calm. But the most significant discovery was a small, water-stained field journal. Within its pages, Jerry's voice, silenced for over 2 years, was about to speak with astonishing clarity, courage, and grace. The journal chronicled her 26 days of survival after she became lost. It was a day-by-day account of her dwindling hope, her unwavering love for her family, and her ultimate acceptance of her fate. Her entries painted a heartbreaking picture. She described her attempts to signal for help, trying to start a signal fire with wet wood, and her failed efforts to find higher ground to get a cell signal. She wrote of her dwindling food supply and the deep, gnawing hunger that set in. Yet, through it all, her thoughts were consistently of others. She worried about the burden her disappearance was placing on her family and the searchers. But the most poignant and powerful part of her final testament was a single page she had carefully torn from the back of the journal, ensuring it would be the first thing her rescuers would see. Dated August 6, 2013, nearly 2 weeks after she went missing, the note was a final act of love. It read, "When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Kerry. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I am dead and where you found me, no matter how many years from now." In her final moments, her primary concern was to bring peace to the people she loved, to end their suffering of not knowing. It was an act of profound selflessness. The medical examiner ruled her death accidental, caused by lack of food and water and environmental exposure. The main warden service confirmed there was absolutely no evidence of foul play. Jerry Largay had simply made a wrong turn and was unable to find her way back, a victim of the unforgiving wilderness she had so respected. Her death, while tragic, was not in vain. The discovery of her journal and the details of her ordeal sent a shockwave through the hiking community. It served as a stark and powerful reminder that the wilderness does not distinguish between novice and expert. Her tragedy became a catalyst for change, sparking urgent conversations about wilderness navigation, the real risks of solo hiking, and the critical importance of carrying reliable emergency communication devices. Organizations like the Appalachian Trail Conservancy amplified their safety messaging, urging hikers to carry personal locator beacons or satellite messengers, devices that can send an SOS signal with GPS coordinates from anywhere on the planet, even without cell service. Jerry's story underscored a vital lesson. Even the most prepared and experienced hikers can become lost, and a simple piece of technology could have made the difference between life and death. In the end, Jerry Largay's story is not defined by its tragic conclusion. It is a profound and inspiring testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love. Her final journal entries, written in the face of certain death, were not expressions of despair, but of grace, dignity, and an unwavering concern for her family. She transformed her final lonely days into a lasting message of love. Her final journey ended in the deep woods of Maine, but her legacy of grace endures. It is a silent, powerful echo on the trail, a story shared between hikers at shelters and around campfires. It is a reminder to prepare, to be humble, and to cherish every moment. In the hearts of all who hear her story, Jerry Lage walks on, a symbol not of how a life was lost, but of how it was lived, right to the very end.
Beneath New Jersey's murky Atlantic, a shadow waits. It's U-869, a lost World War II U-boat. Wreck divers chase clues through cold green darkness. Today, we cover one of wreck diving's most tragic stories. Make sure to subscribe to catch future videos like this. 60 miles off the coast of New Jersey, the water is a dark, murky green. Visibility is a luxury. Today, it is barely 10 feet. Bubbles rise in a frantic, silvery column. They are the only sign of life in this crushing, silent world. Each breath is a loud, mechanical rasp, the sound of a diver's regulator. It is the only sound that matters down here, this deep, this far from the sun. The pressure is immense. It squeezes the body. It plays tricks on the mind. A single beam of light cuts through the gloom. It is a diver's torch. It sweeps back and forth, a nervous pulse in the darkness. The light catches swirling particles, marine snow, a constant blizzard of debris from the world above. It dances in the beam, making it hard to focus, making it hard to see what lies just beyond its reach. The diver descends slowly, carefully. Every foot deeper is a step into another realm, a world without colour, a world without warmth, a world where mistakes are not forgiven. The surface feels a million miles away. It might as well be on another planet. The silence is broken by a faint, rhythmic sound. Ping, a sonar echo. It comes from the support boat, far above on the rolling waves. Ping, it is searching, mapping the unseen. The sound travels through the water, a ghostly messenger. It paints a picture of the seabed on a screen. But screens are for the surface. Down here, there is only what the light can touch. The diver is a small, fragile figure in a vast, indifferent ocean, floating in endless suspension, waiting, searching. The cold gnaws at exposed skin. It stiffens the fingers. It makes every movement a conscious effort. This is not a place for the living. It is a graveyard, a place where things are lost, forgotten. The ocean keeps its secrets well. It guards them with pressure. Darkness, cold. To come here is to challenge the natural order. It is an act of sheer will, an act of defiance against the crushing weight of the sea. The diver continues the descent, deeper and deeper, into the heart of the abyss, drawn by a mystery, pulled by a question that has no easy answer. What lies at the bottom of this cold, unforgiving sea? The pings continue, a steady, haunting heartbeat in the deep. The sonar paints a picture. It is a crude image, a grainy sonar view, a long, dark shape on the sandy bottom. It is man-made, there is no doubt. The shape is unnatural, a foreign object in a desolate seascape. For years it was just a rumour, a fisherman's tale, a snag on a net, a ghost on a depth finder. Local divers gave it a name, U-Who. The name was a question. U-boat? Who knows? A mystery wrapped in steel. Lying at a depth that tested conventional diving, 230 feet down, a place where the sun never shines. Its identity is a puzzle. No records showed a submarine lost here. Not an American one, not a German one. Naval historians were stumped. Archives were silent. The wreck shouldn't be here. Yet there it was, a silent, steel tomb. Secrets locked away, guarded by pressure and treacherous Atlantic currents. Many had tried to explore it. Few had succeeded. The depth was extreme. The conditions were brutal. The wreck is a maze of jagged metal, tangled wires. It did not give up its secrets easily. Reaching the wreck is only the beginning. The real danger lies within. Exploring the interior is a different challenge. Not just diving. Cave diving in steel that's slowly collapsing. Tight passages. Darkness absolute. Silt covering every surface. One misplaced fin kick can stir it up. It creates a total blackout. Getting lost is easy. Finding your way out can be impossible. Entanglement is constant. Wires hang like spider webs. Sharp edges wait in the dark. This place demands perfection. For years, Yoo-hoo was legend, a challenge for daring wreck divers. The Mount Everest of the East Coast. Identifying the wreck would solve a historical mystery. It would give a name to the ghost ship. It would tell the story of its final moments. It would honor the men who went down with it. But the price of that knowledge was high. The ocean demanded respect. You, who had already proven it could be deadly to those who did not give it. Enter Chris and Chrissy Rouse, father and son from Pennsylvania. They were not your average weekend divers. They were driven. They were meticulous. Some would say they were obsessed. For them, diving was not a hobby. It was a calling, a way to push boundaries, a way to explore the last unknown frontiers on Earth. They were drawn to the most difficult and dangerous wrecks, the ones nobody else could conquer. The Yoo-hoo was the ultimate challenge, an unidentified World War II submarine, lying in deep, dark water. It was a mystery that was tailor-made for them. They had one single-minded goal. They would be the ones to identify it. Chris, the father, was a veteran diver, a pioneer in the world of technical diving. He had a reputation for being fearless, for pushing the gear and himself to the absolute limit. Chrissy, his son, was his partner, his equal in the water. They shared a unique bond, forged in the crushing depths of the ocean. They planned their dives with military precision. They customized their equipment. They rehearsed every step. They left nothing to chance. Their teamwork was seamless, a silent language of hand signals and shared glances. In the hostile environment of the deep, they moved as one. Their quest to identify the Yoo-hoo became an all-consuming passion. It dominated their lives. They spent countless hours researching, studying naval archives, talking to historians. They spent thousands of dollars on equipment and boat charters. Every weekend was dedicated to the wreck. They made dive after dive, each time going a little deeper, staying a little longer, pushing a little further into the submarine's dark interior. They were searching for a clue, a single piece of evidence, anything that could give the U-boat its name back. A manufacturer's plate, a serial number, a personal effect from a crew member. This was more than just a dive. It was a historical expedition. They were not treasure hunters. They were underwater detectives, piecing together a puzzle that had been lost for half a century. They knew the risks. They understood the danger better than anyone. At 230 feet, nitrogen narcosis, the rapture of the deep, could cloud judgment. Decompression sickness, the bends, was a constant threat. An equipment failure could be fatal. But for the Rouses, the pull of the mystery was stronger than the fear, the obsession to know, to discover. It drove them deeper and deeper into the heart of the Yoo-hoo. In 1992, the push toward the engine room was one of the Rouses' most ambitious goals. Located in the aft section, it was the vessel's powerhouse. It housed the massive diesel engines. It housed the electric motors. It was a place of extreme noise and heat when the submarine was alive. Now it was a place of extreme silence and cold. In the engine room, they noted manufacturers' plates on the MAN diesel engines. Chris signaled Chrissy. They documented locations and markings carefully, working through grime but keeping their focus on recording evidence. A wire brush revealed the MAN logo and partial serials, strong clues of German manufacture, not a hull number. They photographed and logged everything, preserving details for later research. They had a lead, small, stubborn clues buried deep in the most dangerous confines. Enough to suggest a German U-boat, but not the final identification. For the Rouses, it was a hard-won step forward. They had pushed further, risked more, and gathered evidence others could analyse. The swim out felt like progress, not the finish line, but a breakthrough worth the risk. They had stared into the abyss, and the abyss had blinked. As they exited the hatch and began their ascent up the anchor line, the mood was euphoric. They had been inside the wreck for over 20 minutes, a dangerously long time at that depth. They thought about the research that awaited them on the surface. The long, tedious decompression stops that awaited them on the line felt like a minor inconvenience, a small price to pay for the historic discovery they held in their hands and in their minds. Victory was sweet. Inside the steel maze of U-869, Chrissy squeezes through a tight passage and becomes trapped. A snag, a wrong turn. Silt erupts. The world turns to grey. He flashes a frantic light signal. Chris sees it and goes back in, father for son, partner for partner. They fight the wreck and the clock. Lines, wires, jagged steel. Gauges dip low, breaths grow shorter. Pressure, metal, and time close in. They free the jam, but the gas is nearly gone. There is no margin left, only one choice. They bolt for the exit, leaving careful plans behind. A rapid, uncontrolled ascent begins. No proper stops. Physics does not forgive. They reach the surface far too soon. On the surface, chaos. Shouts, dragging bodies over the gunnel. Chrissy loses consciousness within minutes. CPR, oxygen, desperate hands working against the clock. Chris is alive, confused, in agony, hit hard by decompression sickness. Bubbles rip through blood and tissue, the bends made real. A mayday, a race to shore. The Coast Guard coordinates. Every minute matters. The boat pounds through chop toward the dock. Urgency on every face, urgency in every movement. At the dock, paramedics, a stretcher, ambulance doors slam. Sirens answer. In the recompression chamber, pressure rises, and hope with it. Protocols engage, time stretches. But for Chrissy, it is too late. The damage is done. He is gone soon after surfacing. Chris fights through the night under constant care. But despite treatment, he dies the next day in the hospital. 2 lives bound by courage and obsession, claimed by the sea. The monitors fall silent. The room goes still. The cost of 1 entrapment, 1 rescue, 1 panicked ascent, paid in hours. Panic, entanglement, gas management, decompression. In the deep, discipline is life. Fear is fatal. The ocean has the final say. Remember their skill. Remember their love. Remember the lesson. For Chris and Chrissy Rouse, U-869 was the last dive. A war grave and a warning. In the stillness after, the sea keeps its silence, and we keep their memory. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the evidence that Chris and Chrissy Rouse had collected was not forgotten. Other divers, including John Chatterton, took up the task of finishing their work. The process was slow and difficult. They had to cross-reference obscure parts lists and engine manufacturing records. But finally, they found a match. Later, other divers located and photographed artifacts, parts stamped with the number U-869. Cross-referenced with engine and parts records, the match was definitive. The ghost ship finally had a name. History had to be rewritten. The official record stated that U-869 had been sunk by Allied warships off the coast of Gibraltar in the Mediterranean. The discovery off the coast of New Jersey proved this was wrong. The discovery provided closure for the families of the German crewmen, who for 50 years had believed their loved ones were lost in a different ocean. They had mourned them in the wrong ocean. The discovery also fostered an unlikely connection between the American divers who found the wreck and the German families of the men who died on it. John Chatterton and others who continued the research travelled to Germany to meet with surviving relatives. They shared the story of the discovery, showed them underwater footage of the submarine, and presented them with some of the artifacts recovered from the wreck, such as the German-made dinner plates. These meetings were emotional, bridging a gap of decades, nationalities, and the lingering shadows of war. The discovery transformed an anonymous wreck, the Yoo-hoo, into a recognized war grave, a memorial to the 56 men who remain entombed within its steel hull. Chris and Chrissy Rouse risked everything for discovery. They were driven by a passion that few can understand, a need to know what lay hidden in the dark, cold waters off the coast of New Jersey. Their quest was not for gold or treasure, but for a piece of history. They chased a ghost ship and, through extraordinary bravery and meticulous documentation, advanced the search. Later, divers confirmed U-869 with artifacts stamped with its number. The Rouse's work paved the way, correcting a decades-old error, a story later chronicled in Shadow Divers, proving that forgotten truths can still be found by those willing to look in the deepest, darkest places. If you love true survival stories and deep-sea mysteries, subscribe now for more real-world explorations brought to life.
At 10 a.m. in northeastern Mexico, a mirror-still pool conceals the vertical abyss of El Zacaton, where two divers prepare to descend beyond daylight. A hiss of gear, one steady breath, then silence as twin lights slip under. Only one will return. Today we will go over the tragic case of Sheck Exley and his final moments in the unforgiving depths of El Zacaton. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more true exploration stories. In caves, the path forward means nothing without the path home, a thin guideline held by a gloved hand, its beams swallowed by black stone. Lose it, and the cave keeps you. Sheck Exley knew this better than anyone, a quiet math teacher on land, a titan below. He wrote the rules, then dared the abyss that breaks them. His world lived under rock and time, cavern ceilings, sinkholes, vertical shafts that swallow daylight whole. Below 100 feet, the sun dies. The silence presses like weight. For most, a nightmare. For Exley, a calling. He brought order to darkness. Gauges, depth marks, arrows on line, notes in a wet notebook, calm breathing, cold decisions. He treated risk like math and lived at the edge of the possible. 4,000 cave dives, first to log 1,000. System after system, he went farther, longer, and always came back. Respect was earned in silence and in exits. One number stalked him, 1,000 feet on scuba. Not just depth, pressure. At that range, biology bends, metal complains, minds wander, most turn back. The place was El Zacaton, green on top, black below. Exley would not go alone. Jim Bowden, rival and friend. Two minds, one plan, one nod, one breath. They dropped. The hiss of life support, the line paying out. The world above sealed behind them. Two descended. Only one would surface. This is how Sheck Exley met the deepest pit on Earth, and why the law to find the way out matters. The story begins. In the sprawling, sun-drenched suburbs of Jacksonville, Florida, Sheck Exley was born into a world that seemed, on its surface, entirely ordinary. But from his earliest days, it was clear he was wired differently. He was a quiet, introspective child, less interested in the boisterous games of his peers, and more captivated by the internal world of thought and imagination. His mind was a natural home for patterns, logic, and the elegant certainty of numbers. While other children saw a playground, Sheck saw geometry. Where they saw chaos, he perceived an underlying order waiting to be deciphered. This innate analytical lens was paired with a fervent love for science fiction, tales of astronauts venturing into the unknown, exploring alien planets and navigating the hostile vacuum of space. These stories weren't just escapism. They were a blueprint for a yearning that was taking root deep within him, a desire to journey to places no one had ever been before. He was a boy with the mind of a mathematician and the heart of an astronaut, living in a landscape that held its own hidden alien worlds just beneath the surface. This analytical nature found its first professional outlet in a seemingly conventional career. He became a high school algebra and trigonometry teacher at Suwannee High School in Live Oak, Florida. To his students, he was Mr. Exley, a calm, methodical presence who could unravel the most daunting equations and make abstract concepts feel tangible. He taught mathematics not as a dry academic subject, but as a language for understanding the world, a tool for solving complex problems with precision and clarity. His classroom was a domain of logic, where every problem had a solution if one followed the rules. He was known for his patience and his ability to connect with students who struggled, showing them that the path through a difficult problem was a step-by-step process. There was a right way and a wrong way, and the difference was a matter of discipline. This daily practice of instilling logical rigor in young minds was, in retrospect, a rehearsal for a far more demanding and dangerous application of the very same principles. Because outside the structured certainty of the classroom, this same mind was drawn to a different kind of problem-solving, one that took place in the absolute darkness of the water-filled caves hidden beneath the Florida landscape. The state's placid surface, dotted with crystalline springs, was merely a facade. Below lay the Floridan aquifer, a colossal subterranean labyrinth of limestone conduits carved by millennia of flowing water. These were not just caves, they were the arteries of the peninsula, a vast unmapped wilderness. For Exley, the dark, beckoning mouths of the springs were portals. They were the real-world equivalent of the alien landscapes he'd read about as a boy, a frontier that was not in the distant stars, but right under his feet. The challenge was irresistible: to apply the cold logic of mathematics to the fluid, unpredictable, and utterly unforgiving environment of an underwater cave. His journey into this subterranean world began in 1965. At just 16 years old, he earned his scuba certification. Like many new divers in the region, he was immediately drawn to the unique allure of Florida's freshwater springs, places like Ginny Springs and Peacock Springs. These natural wells offered unparalleled visibility, a constant cool temperature, and served as windows into that vast underground network of limestone caverns. The initial dives were intoxicating. The feeling of weightlessness, the silent beauty of the sunlit basins, the dance of light rays piercing the water, it was a profound escape. But for Exley, the true fascination wasn't in the light. While most divers were content to stay within the sunlit basins, enjoying the recreational limits of the sport, Exley felt an irresistible, almost magnetic pull toward the dark openings that hinted at a world beyond. Where others saw a forbidding black hole and felt a primal fear of the unknown, he saw a question that demanded an answer. What was in there? How far did it go? What secrets did it hold? He was captivated not just by the beauty, but by the challenge of exploration itself. Each cave was a puzzle, a three-dimensional maze that had never been mapped, a problem that had never been solved. This was the ultimate test of his logical mind. What immediately set Exley apart from the handful of other early cave explorers was his meticulous, almost clinical approach. He didn't see himself as a thrill-seeker. He saw himself as a scientist and an engineer in a hostile environment. He treated every single dive like a complex mathematical problem, with variables that had to be controlled and accounted for. Air consumption, depth, time, distance, decompression obligations. These weren't just numbers, they were the components of a life-or-death equation. In the absolute blackness of a cave, hundreds of feet from the nearest exit, there was no room for improvisation, no tolerance for error. A single miscalculation could be, and often was, fatal. His methodical nature, honed in the classroom, was now his most critical survival tool. His reputation for methodical, relentless exploration grew at an astonishing pace. Between 1965 and 1970, he systematically pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. He wasn't just diving, he was conducting a grand underwater survey, one dive at a time. His dive logs from this period are a testament to his discipline, filled with precise measurements, detailed maps, and objective observations. By 1970, just 5 years after his first certification dive, he achieved a milestone that was, at the time, almost incomprehensible. He became the first person in history to log 1,000 cave dives. In an era when most divers were lucky to survive a few dozen, Exley had turned the most dangerous sport in the world into a systematic, repeatable science. He wasn't just racking up numbers, he was fundamentally inventing the sport as he went. The equipment was primitive, the techniques non-existent. So, he developed them. He experimented with different ways of laying a continuous guideline, the sole lifeline back to the surface. He refined his gear, modifying regulators for better performance at depth. And most critically, he pioneered the concept of staging safety bottles, placing extra tanks of breathing gas along the guideline at strategic points. This created depots of air that extended range and, more importantly, provided a crucial backup in case of an emergency far from the cave's entrance. These innovations were revolutionary, born from his own near misses and logical analysis of risk. Today, they are the bedrock of standard cave diving practice. This drive to create safety protocols was fueled by grim reality. Exley saw firsthand the deadly consequences of carelessness. In the late 1960s and early 70s, cave diving was earning its reputation as the world's most dangerous sport, one tragedy at a time. Untrained open-water divers, lured by the beauty of the springs, would venture into the overhead environment without a guideline, without sufficient air, and without backup lights. Panic, disorientation, and death were frequent outcomes. Exley was often the one called upon to perform the grim task of recovering the bodies of his fellow divers. Each recovery was a somber, first-hand lesson in what could go wrong. He analysed every accident with the same dispassionate logic he applied to his own dives, determined to understand the chain of events that led to disaster. He dedicated himself to creating a rigorous code of conduct, a set of unbreakable rules designed to prevent these tragedies. His most enduring contribution was a simple but brilliant concept for air management, born from his mathematical mind, the rule of thirds. The logic was irrefutable. A diver would use 1/3 of their starting air supply for the penetration into the cave. The second third was allocated for the exit. The final, crucial third was to be held in reserve, untouched. This final third was the margin of safety. It was not for extending the dive, it was for solving problems. This emergency supply could be used to deal with an unexpected delay, like fighting a strong outflowing current. It could be used if a diver became briefly entangled and needed extra time to cut themselves free. Or, in the most critical scenario, it could be used to share air with a dive partner who had suffered a catastrophic equipment failure. It was a simple, elegant rule, but it created an unbreakable buffer against the unforeseen. It transformed air management from a guessing game into a calculated plan. He applied the same logic to another critical system: light. In the open ocean, a light failure is an inconvenience. In a cave, it is a death sentence. The darkness is absolute, a physical presence that erases all sense of direction. To combat this, Exley stressed the principle of redundancy. He mandated that every cave diver must carry a minimum of 3 independent light sources, a powerful primary light, and at least 2 smaller, reliable backup lights. The failure of 1, or even 2, would not leave a diver stranded in impenetrable blackness. Like the rule of thirds, it was a simple protocol that provided a powerful layer of safety. Through his writing, his teaching, and his personal example, Exley began to transform a scattered community of risk-takers into a disciplined fraternity of explorers. He co-authored the first cave diving training manual, Basic Cave Diving, codifying his principles for a new generation. Divers listened because his authority was absolute. They knew his advice wasn't theoretical. It was forged in the darkest, deepest, and most dangerous corners of the earth. He was the man who had been there, pushed the limits, and returned, not by luck, but by logic. He was building a foundation of safety that would allow others to follow him into the dark. In the arid landscape of northeastern Mexico lies a geological wonder. The largest and most mysterious of these is El Zacaton. From the surface, it appears as a near-perfect circle. But this serene image masks a terrifying reality. It is the mouth of a colossal vertical shaft plunging deep into the Earth's crust. Unlike other cenotes, the Zacaton system is geothermal. For millennia, volcanically heated, acidic groundwater has been dissolving the limestone from below, carving out an abyss deeper than any known water-filled pit in the world. The water itself is a hostile environment. Visibility is limited, and below 100 feet, the sun vanishes completely. The pressure rises with terrifying speed. The shaft's verticality presents immense physiological dangers: nitrogen narcosis, the bizarre effects of high-pressure nervous syndrome, and the risk of carbon dioxide buildup in a rebreather. For a man like Sheikh Exley, who had set depth records around the world, El Zacaton was the ultimate prize. The siren's call was irresistible. The morning of April 6, 1994, broke warm and clear over El Zacaton. An air of quiet, focused intensity settled over the dive site, a stark contrast to the immense unseen pressures waiting below. This was not just another dive, it was an assault on the deepest known underwater pit on Earth, and the preparations reflected the gravity of the undertaking. For Sheikh Exley and Jim Bowden, the day began not with a rush of adrenaline, but with a methodical, almost ritualistic assembly of their life support systems. Every component of their closed-circuit rebreathers was laid out, inspected, and assembled with surgical precision. The carbon dioxide absorbent, a chemical that would scrub their exhaled breath, was carefully packed into its canister. A single channel or void in this material could be fatal, allowing a buildup of CO2 that would lead to hypercapnia, a silent and insidious killer at depth. Exley moved with his characteristic calm. His confidence came from his meticulous preparation, transforming anxiety into focused action, leaving nothing to chance. He triple-checked the calibration of his oxygen sensors, the electronic hearts of the rebreather. These sensors were the only thing preventing a fatal dose of oxygen at pressure, or a hypoxic gas mix that would render him unconscious. The protocol was absolute. Trust the consensus of 2 sensors if a third deviated. He then programmed his dive computers, inputting the complex sequence of gas mixtures they would breathe. For the crushing depths they aimed for, air was a poison. They would descend on trimix, a carefully blended cocktail of oxygen, helium, and nitrogen, designed to mitigate the debilitating effects of narcosis and oxygen toxicity. Their bottom mix, for the deepest phase of the dive, would contain as little as 3 or 4% oxygen, a mixture that would be unbreathable at the surface. The plan was a symphony of logistics. Their descent would be a controlled fall into darkness, aiming for a rate of 100 feet per minute. But going down was the easy part. The ascent would be a grueling, multi-hour affair, a slow crawl back to the world of light and air. To survive it, they relied on a robust bailout strategy. Strapped to their bodies were multiple independent scuba cylinders, each filled with a specific gas for a specific depth range. These were their lifeboats in the abyss. If the rebreather failed, a catastrophic event known as a loop flood or a total electronics failure, the only option was to switch to an open-circuit bailout tank and immediately begin the ascent. This redundancy was the bedrock of their survival plan. Finally, burdened by hundreds of pounds of equipment, they were ready. With a final nod to the support team and to each other, they stood on the precipice of history, ready to leave the sunlit world behind. Around 10 a.m., the 2 divers slipped beneath the surface. The transition was immediate and profound. The cacophony of the surface world vanished, replaced by the gentle hiss of their rebreathers and the sound of their own breathing. They followed the descent line, a thin nylon thread connecting them to the surface. At the 100-foot mark, the last vestiges of sunlight were extinguished. The water, green and inviting at the surface, was now an absolute featureless black. Only their powerful dive lights cut the void, their beams seeming to be swallowed by the immensity just a few feet from their masks. Jim Bowden was in the lead, his light a distant star below Exley. They were 2 solitary explorers charting parallel courses into the abyss, connected only by photons and a shared, audacious goal. Their communication was reduced to the simple, pre-arranged language of light signals. A circle meant OK, a rapid slash meant attention or problem. At this depth, there was no room for ambiguity. As he approached 700 feet, Bowden began to experience difficulties. The helium-rich gas they breathed, while preventing narcosis, was incredibly dense at this pressure. The physical effort of moving it in and out of his lungs and through the rebreather loop was becoming extreme. Each breath was a conscious, laborious act. At a depth of approximately 925 feet, a new, more alarming symptom appeared. His hands began to tremble uncontrollably. He was feeling the initial tremors of high-pressure nervous syndrome, or HPNS. The sheer hydrostatic pressure was compressing his nerves, causing them to fire erratically. It was a clear, undeniable signal from his own body. He had reached his absolute physiological limit. To continue deeper would be to risk convulsions and certain death. He had to turn back, He signaled his turn, a slow, deliberate sweep of his light. As he started the long, lonely journey upward, he watched as Sheik Exley's light did not follow. Instead, it paused for a moment, perhaps in acknowledgement, and then continued its inexorable descent. Exley was now completely alone, a single point of light receding into the infinite black, committed to pushing onward into the unknown. Beyond 900 feet, the cave was no longer a place, but a pressure. Weight upon thought, weight upon breath. He was alone in a column of black water where even sound seemed to compress. Each movement had to earn its oxygen. At that depth, physiology changes. Gas is denser. Every inhale and exhale takes work. The mind, deprived of easy breath, narrows to the immediate, the line, the numbers, the light. He monitored for the early signs of high-pressure nervous syndrome, fine tremors, a slight flutter in the fingers, a sense of being hurried by nothing. HPNS is pressure acting on nerves, turning signals noisy. He breathed deliberately, steady, measured, knowing that workload is the silent enemy at depth. The rebreather would scrub carbon dioxide, but only if he kept his effort low. The shaft drew him downward, a hollow with no walls in the beam, just the line falling into night. He was past records, past footprints. The numbers told him he was where few could even imagine being. Then, a small drag, not a jerk, a suggestion. Something touched the guideline and did not want to let go. A hose brushed the cord, or a bolt snap angled just so. In caves, millimeters matter. What begins as a whisper of resistance becomes a problem that asks for hands and time. He paused, neutrally buoyant, to clear it. Glove against cord, a careful lift, a twist, a slide. The visibility was little more than a cone of dust. Task loading crept upward. The line held a faint bend, nothing dramatic, just friction against hardware. He tried again, patient and methodical, knowing speed would cost more breath than it saved. Effort rose. And with effort, carbon dioxide. CO2 is the body's metronome. When it climbs, your brain shouts for more breath. At depth, that demand can outrun the machine. Rebreathers recycle exhaled gas through a scrubber to remove CO2. But scrubbing is not instantaneous, and it is not infinite. High workload creates more carbon dioxide than the loop can clear in time. The feedback loop is cruel. CO2 climbs, air hunger rises, you breathe faster, workload increases, CO2 rises again. Tunnel vision creeps in, focus frays. He worked the snag with small, deliberate motions, trying to keep the heart slow, but the depth taxed every system. Gas density turned each breath into labor. Acute hypercapnia, the medical term for high CO2, does not announce itself with drama. It arrives as confusion, a rising heat in the chest, the feeling that the next breath is never quite enough. Decision windows narrowed. At this depth, a bailout to open circuit is possible, but costly. Gas goes fast, work climbs, the ceiling of decompression obligations presses down. He had planned for failure, multiple lifelines, but plans depend on cognition. Hypercapnia steals clarity first, then control. The tremor in his hands deepened. HPNS layered on top of CO2 load. Pressure on nerves, pressure on breath, pressure on time. He tried to buy space, stop, breathe, think. But the margin was gone. The loop could not keep up. The black pressed closer. Overwhelmed by a perfect storm of hypercapnia and HPNS, cognition slipped. The hands slowed. The struggle ceased. His light remained, an artificial star in an ancient night, painting a small cathedral of silt and rock in pale white. Around it, the cave absorbed the news without comment. Water, stone, silence. Above and far away, Jim Bowden was already on his way up, committed to hours of staged decompression. He had signaled his turn earlier. Exley's light had continued downward. From Bowden's perspective, there was only protocol. Ascend, stop, wait, breathe, and do not break the ceilings that keep bubbles out of blood. At that depth, rescue is not a choice. Physics decides. The distance between two lights in a pit that deep is measured in hours, not feet. Information moves slowly. So does hope. Recovery would take days, teams, plans, and limits. The pit's geometry, the depth, the decompression burden, each imposed a boundary that no willpower could erase. There was no panic in his equipment. Later analysis would show a physiological cascade, not a failure of nerve. The systems worked until the body could not. Lessons endure. Manage the line as if memory depends on it, because it does. Keep workload low at depth. Respect the narrow windows where decisions still matter. Plan conservatively, then plan again. Staged cylinders are not bravado, they are lifelines. Redundancy is not weight, it is permission to return. And remember that depth is not an opponent to defeat, but an environment to endure. On its terms, not ours. His light for a while marked the place where human curiosity met its limit. Then even that faded. The world's greatest cave diver had gone down into the cave and would not be finding the way out. What followed would test a community he helped build. When Bowden finally broke the surface after his own arduous 9-hour decompression, the question was immediate. Where is Shek? As the sun set, the grim reality sank in. The planned triumph had ended in tragedy. Plans shifted from rescue to recovery. Days later, his body was found at approximately 885 feet. Analysis of his recovered equipment confirmed he had not panicked, but was overwhelmed by a fatal physiological cascade. News of his death sent a shockwave through the international diving community. The man who seemed invincible was gone, a sobering reminder that no one is immune. His legacy is etched into the very fabric of technical diving. The rule of thirds, the emphasis on redundancy, the unwavering discipline he preached, these are now fundamental doctrines. He transformed a reckless pursuit into a calculated science, and in doing so, saved an unknowable number of lives. His story is a permanent fixture in diving lore, a cautionary tale and an epic of courage. For more true stories of exploration and human courage, stay tuned. Boesmansgat, also known as Bushman's Hole, a deep freshwater sinkhole in the northern Cape of South Africa. Its circular entrance drops through dolomitic limestone into shadow. A still surface pool leads into a vast vertical cave system. The site sits near 1,550 meters above sea level, high altitude for diving. That altitude complicates decompression planning and gas strategy. It is among the world's deepest known freshwater sinkholes. Beyond a tight restriction, the shaft opens into a massive chamber. Dives here demand exacting training and strict procedures. Errors at depth can be unforgiving. Darkness, depth, and cold amplify even minor problems. In 1994, a tragedy here set the stage for what followed. Dion Dreyer, a young South African diver, was lost during a dive. Despite searches, his body could not be recovered at the time. A decade later, Australian cave diver David Shaw took interest. In October 2004, Shaw descended to about 270 meters, around 886 feet. On that record dive, he located Dreyer's body near the bottom. He surfaced with a plan for a careful recovery operation. The mission would require specialized equipment and staged gases, and it had to account for high-altitude decompression obligations. Veteran diver Don Shirley led on-site support and logistics. A formal recovery was scheduled for January 2005. Roles, guidelines, lighting, and contingencies were clearly defined. Every buckle, every regulator, every checklist mattered. At this depth and altitude, margins are razor thin. This is the documented context for what unfolded at Boesmansgat. The plan is exacting, rehearsed to the second. They will drop on closed-circuit rebreathers toward the main shaft. Riding the shot line, they clip to the permanent guideline deep into the system. Dave dives a modified Mk15.5 rebreather on helium-based trimix. Bailout cylinders are staged along the route. Working time at depth is minutes. Total runtime will stretch for hours. High altitude and extreme depth dictate a long, unforgiving decompression schedule. Helium trimix cuts narcosis and gas density for safer work at depth. Redundant electronics and manual controls back up the loop. And iron discipline, breathing, buoyancy, and task load never wavers. Every tool is staged with intent. Reels, markers, bailout regs, nothing spare. Their lives depend on scrubber efficiency, oxygen supply and bailout gas, and on lights that must not fail in the dark. Above all, the thin guideline, touchstone and lifeline will lead them home. It is their only connection to the world of light and air. One by one, they slip beneath the surface, Dave the recovery diver, Don coordinating support and decompression. Topsides and at shallow stops, the support crew tracks times, gases, and the ascent plan. Below, a profound quiet takes hold. Only mission time and depth matter now. The soundscape is spare. Soft valve clicks, faint loop murmurs, measured breaths. Solenoid ticks and rare bubbles mark a controlled CCR descent. Below them, the cave floor falls away toward a ledge near 270 meters. Dave flashes an OK. His beam finds the line, his hand never leaving it. Cold bites through the suit, sharpening focus as workload rises with depth. It's a cold that sharpens the senses and slows the breath. He is ready, tasks primed, timings tight. He is focused. CO2 risk, work of breathing, and gas windows in mind. Ahead lies the threshold, minutes to work at depth, and a long, high-altitude decompression to pay. The descent at Bohzemundsgat begins in a vast shaft of limestone, a world of cold, dense water and darkness that deepens with every foot. Names don't matter here, only depth, discipline, and the plan. The chamber is enormous, carved over geologic time, but at these depths, the water is very dark and cold. Visibility can be crystal one moment and arm's length the next, filtered by the rock, yet betrayed by the finest silt. Light travels only as tight, white cones. Beyond them, black water swallows everything. Every decision is measured against time, depth, and gas. Limestone walls drop away in pale contours, mineral scars and ledges marking the ancient flow. No theatrics, just geology and gravity, falling into a silty floor that waits for the careless. David and his team keep movements small and slow, fins still unless necessary, hands close to the line, keeping the water calm. Every kick is a controlled frog kick, every trim correction deliberate to avoid waking the silt. In this place, restraint is safety. Method over momentum, calm over curiosity. Their route is pre-briefed. Movements are slow, clip to the plan, hold the guideline, monitor the shot line, maintain spacing, avoid contact with the floor and walls. This is muscle memory, years of practice distilled into quiet efficiency. Neutral and in trim, they hover in the water column. Beams sweep in coordinated arcs, each diver tracking the other's lights and positions without a word. The communication is light, touch and timing, planned, practiced and precise. There is no improvisation. All actions on the line are pre-agreed. How to pass, how to signal, how to stop. The rule is simple. Follow the plan, protect the line. Ahead, the permanent guideline drops toward the lower chambers. Beside it, the shot line, a lifeline to the surface. Between them is certainty, away from them is nothing. The profile steepens and space tightens. They clip, check, and proceed along the established lines toward the bottom zone, where the silt is thickest and time windows narrow. Every meter deeper increases the cost of a mistake. At a threshold, David pauses, gauges, timers, set points, confirming runtime and gas. He is calm. He is on plan. Depth increasing. Pressures stable. Gas mixes verified. The window for work at the bottom will be short, and they all know it. The goal remains unchanged. Execute, conserve, return on the line. The team closes to a safe, brief regroup. Touch signals confirm status on the guideline. OK, proceed. This is a go, no-go. Agreed in advance, executed in seconds. Then they move, one after another, exactly as rehearsed. Committing deeper makes turning back slow and complex. Depth, Decompression and geometry conspire. Only the plan and the lines make retreat possible. Total discipline is the price of progress. They are a chain, each diver watching gas, time, and the line, each one responsible for the other. Ahead is a tight restriction, no names, just rock and water, demanding slow, careful passage. Here, speed creates problems. Small motions, steady breathing, and clear protocols keep the water still and the team together. The space fits a single diver with side-mounted cylinders and a rebreather. Tanks tucked, elbows in, body streamlined to slip through without touching silt or stone. Contact stays on the guideline, index finger riding the cord, the other hand ready for signals. Buoyancy is measured in millimeters. Heart rate low, movements economical. The goal is to leave the water exactly as you found it. Anything else risks the floor, and the floor is silt. One careless kick, one surge of air, and the cave's hidden guardian wakes. Silt turns visibility to 0 in seconds. Silt is the quiet danger here. A fine, flour-like powder that coats every surface near the bottom of Bau-Hazard Mons Ghat. Disturb it, and clear water becomes an opaque cloud. In a silt-out, light is useless, and only the line remains. This is why they brief touch and line protocols before the dive. How to find, hold, and follow the guideline when sight is gone. David checks his team. OKs exchanged by light and by touch. The spacing is right, the plan is intact. They continue. No words needed. The line speaks for them. He turns toward the deeper drop, beam pinned to the guideline and shot line. With a deliberate signal, he leads the way. The team follows, one at a time, exactly on the cord. He trims a breath, sinks a fraction, and advances hand over hand on the line. No fin wash, no surge, just inches gained in silence. The walls press close, the psychological weight rising with the physical pressure. He keeps his world small, hands, line, gauges, nothing else. Focus narrows to the task and the ticking clock. The guideline is texture under his glove, a thin certainty in a vast dark. It is the map, the compass, the way home. David reaches the target zone near 270 meters, close to where he had previously seen Dion Dreyer. The working window is razor thin. Every motion is calm and methodical to keep the silt asleep. The guideline and shot line remain his lifelines back to light and air. The point of no return is behind him. From here, discipline is everything. Beyond the squeeze, David's light settles on a still form. He confirms Dreyer's remains, pauses, and begins the recovery exactly as planned. He unrolls the body bag, clips the toe point, and starts methodically securing what he can reach. Every motion is slow, deliberate, minimizing disturbance, maximizing control. Task loading rises. Primary guideline, exploration reel, recovery line, and the bag must all be managed at once. Line discipline becomes the dive. As he tensions the bag, it lifts, twists, and settles. A loop brushes hardware on his harness. Tiny puffs of silt bloom around his hands, veiling the scene. Visibility narrows to a tunnel of light. He repositions, checks clips by touch, and continues the wrap, steady, careful, precise. The work is hard. At this depth, on a rebreather, elevated exertion drives carbon dioxide up, hypercapnia risk that blunts clarity and control. He tries to clear the snag without cutting, finger-walking the bundle, tracing each strand, protecting the body and the plan. The bag shifts again. Line cinches. In the shuffle, his contact with the main guideline slips. He is now bound to the bag and the recovery line. He pauses to reset, checks time, checks breathing loop, forces the pace down. Even so, the work of breathing down here is unforgiving. He resumes, but the recovery line and bag collar have wrapped around an arm and a valve. Untying costs time. Every second matters at this depth. Silt thickens. His light halos back off the cloud. He works by touch, pinch, slide, backtrack, patient, methodical, aware of the clock. Entanglement tightens at his wrist. The bag stirs with small currents, tugging the bundle of lines in unpredictable pulses. He weighs the knife against the plan, cut lines and risk losing the body or keep working the snags. He chooses the slower path, still trying to preserve the recovery. Effort spikes, CO2 climbs. Breathing feels heavier. The mind narrows. Decision-making degrades in small, dangerous steps. He sweeps for the guideline, no contact. He tries again, nothing. The local cloud has swallowed the reference of the world. Tiny grains keep lofting off the floor and the bag. Each brush of a glove blooms another curtain, turning near into far. This isn't a single failure. It's the stack, extreme depth, entanglement, silt, and the work of breathing under task load, each one sharpening the edge. He keeps working the bundle, but the window is closing. Decompression obligations mount. Time, once elastic, becomes hard and short. The cloud thickens to near-zero visibility. His light becomes a pale disk. He is now trapped by line and bag, still trying to free himself. He works by touch to the last, glove on cord, cord to clip, clip to snag, circling the same problem in a world made small. The bag moves again. The lines answer back. Each motion steals a second he cannot afford. Silt blooms into blackness. The guideline remains unfound. The world contracts to the noise of breathing and the weight of line. In moments, everything is obscured. He is still with the body, still entangled, and his margin is gone. His light scatters and dies in the cloud. There is no path by sight, only touch, and touch yields only knots. Just feet away, teammates exist and then don't, erased by the silt, separated by darkness and time. The guideline, his lifeline, does not return to his hand. The bag and line hold him. The clock holds the rest. He is alone, working the problem to the end. Depth presses. CO2 weighs on thought. The silt makes a small world smaller. When the time window closes, he has not regained the guideline. Extreme depth, entanglement, and the work of breathing have done their quiet, terrible work. In the ink-black silt out, Don Shirley and Rick De La Rosa stayed on the guideline. Training overrode panic. Find the line. Stay on the line. Communicate by touch. The exit began. Slow, deliberate, hand over hand. Their world shrank to the width of braided nylon and breath. Tactile signals replaced sight. Squeeze for OK, a tug for hold. The line was certainty in a storm of liquid earth. Don led, Rick followed, maintaining constant contact. Then the cost began to show, severe vestibular symptoms and mounting distress, the legacy of depth and earlier gas loss. They held formation and kept moving for the exits and the decompression clock. Every few feet they paused, listening, feeling, for a third hand on the line. None came, only the cold hum of bubbles and the silent pull of the cave behind them. The silt thinned to brown, then green haze. Decompression obligations grew heavy. Don's symptoms worsened, but discipline held. The mission shifted from exploration to survival. They cleared the restriction into clear water, the ballroom, where visibility returned with a shock. No third light followed. The call was clear. No immediate re-entry. It would risk 3 lives, not save 1. They searched the edge of the gloom. Nothing. With gas and physiology dictating their limits, they began the staged ascent, methodical and silent. Gauges told the story, lost gas, tight margins. Don was compromised. The third's rule was now a lifeline. The only safe choice was out. Dive computers flashed hard limits. Decompression stops were mandatory, and any return into the silted restriction would be a death sentence. The team stood down and prepared for a long, disciplined exit. The water column became a waiting room. Minutes stretched at each stop, while Don reported symptoms by touch and slate. Rick monitored and signaled topside for medical readiness. At the surface, the transition was surreal. Don was transferred for treatment and later survived, though he suffered a severe vestibular and decompression injury. There would be no hasty return. The next steps would be careful, coordinated, and professional. Word spread quickly. The cave diving community mobilized, friends and peers arriving with skills, logistics, and quiet resolve. Emergency services were notified. But within this discipline, the first responders are often the divers themselves, coordinating with authorities, aligning a plan that puts safety first. A command post took shape before sunrise. Roles were assigned, contingencies mapped, timings calculated. The mission shifted to recovery, with dignity and precision. Don and Rick, exhausted, debriefed every detail: flow, visibility, last knowns. The plan that emerged was cautious, methodical, and built to avoid creating new casualties. On a subsequent operation, the recovery team descended through familiar waypoints into a recently scarred memory. The ballroom, silent and waiting. Past the restriction and into haze, a splash of color appeared, the bright yellow of David's exploration line, snagged on an outcrop. Following the filament through the murk, a searching hand found mass. David Shaw. Nearby rested Dion Dreyer. The team worked with care, documenting, stabilizing, and preparing a dignified return. Both men were recovered with solemn precision. David's video camera was retrieved as well, the record that would later confirm an entanglement and an overwhelming task load cascade in zero visibility. The ascent was slow and deliberate, every movement measured, every stop observed. Professionalism did not waver. Respect guided the work. At the surface, the handover was quiet and reverent. Later, the footage confirmed the story the cave had written: entanglement, silt, and impossible workload. What remained was dignity, teamwork, and a community that took care of its own. In the aftermath, the community assembled a precise timeline and root cause analysis: facts over blame, lessons over opinion. It began with a regulator free flow that drove an instantaneous silt out and separation. At extreme depth on CCR, risks compound. Elevated work of breathing, CO2 retention, and heavy task loading can erode capacity fast. A secondary rebreather fault completed the cascade. Analysis aligned with the recovery team. David Shaw did not panic and did not err in judgment. Multiple low-probability failures converged under unforgiving conditions. The incident became formal curriculum. Case studies, drills, and updated standards focused on mitigating stacked failures. Training shifted to managing multiple simultaneous problems: gas, buoyancy, navigation, and communications under stress, in sequence and in parallel. Line discipline is non-negotiable: entanglement management, continuous contact, clean tie-offs, and limiting tasks at the deep work site to what is essential. Planning for altitude caves is critical. Decompression at elevation significantly extends obligations and shapes gas, thermal, and surface support plans. CCR at depth demands conservative set points, verified scrubber duration, clear bailout strategy, and strict task limits to preserve awareness. Redundancy matters: independent lights, gas and navigation, practiced hand signals and touch contact. Decisions lean conservative, with predefined abort criteria. The community doubled down on mentorship, line drills, equipment checks, and scenario practice, repeatable processes that hold when visibility and time vanish. David Shaw's legacy lives in safer protocols, in divers he trained, and in the enduring commitment to bring Dion Dreyer's story to rest with dignity. He ventured into the darkness to return a son to his family, and his example anchors how future teams plan, brief, and act. If these lessons help you, share them. For more true accounts and training insights, subscribe and add your perspective below. Stay curious, stay conservative, stay safe,